sharpening.
Okay, question from Buckwheat. Is there a reason Ben used the Option Alt key when masking but didn't use it when he was doing the amount?
You can do other ones where if you hold down the Option key and when you're dragging the amount slider, it'll show you a black and white version of your picture that can sometimes make it a little easier to see how that amount is affecting your image. So if you find a little easier where you're not distracted by the colors, because now if I bring this up, I can really see when the texture of her face shows up compared to staying down a little bit where I don't overemphasize that. And I can do it also with the radius, and it actually shows me a different view of my picture. And you can see the radius. Can you see on the edge of her head wrap where it hits the sky right here? That when I hold down the Option key with radius, you can see a tiny little halo. I'll bring this up, you can see a big halo. And so you can actually see it. So you get a sense for how big of a change you're making there. I'm pushing these a bit. So with radius and with amount, you can do that. If you try it with detail, you'll also be able to see the texture starting to come in. You see the texture on the face? And then if I lower this, watch the middle of the face. See how it's no longer looking textured? So it's something not a bad thing to do at all.
Question from DFW2. If you know you will edit in Photoshop, is it better to sharpen in Lightroom or Photoshop?
If I'm going to edit in Photoshop, usually what happens for me is I sharpen just to get rid of the softness of the image from my camera here. Then I edit in Photoshop, doing whatever changes I need, retouching, layering, whatever. Whatever the end result is from Photoshop gets saved back into Lightroom. And then I'm either going to export it, and if so, the sharpening is going to happen in the export preset, or I'm going to print it right from Lightroom, and if so, the sharpening will happen there. And that way I'm not really doing the sharpening in Photoshop. The time I would do the sharpening in Photoshop, if I need it, is if I need it to be selective sharpening. If I really need to paint on a mask to say don't affect a face or something else, then I might end up using what's built into Photoshop.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have another question from Digital Echo, who says, if you don't know how a client will be using an image, how much sharpening should you put on it? Should you just do a little and tell them they will have to sharpen it for the magazine poster, etc., that they will someday use it for?
Yeah, you don't want to over sharpen it, so you could apply just a little bit. You know how you have the choice of 3 choices on the intensity? When you export it, you can put just a little bit on. If they're not giving you specifications of like how to convert to CMYK and how to do other things for publication, then there has to be an assumption made that somebody is going to handle that, and hopefully that person will have enough knowledge to sharpen. If not, most likely most things in their publication aren't in their ideal state. So.
Okay, we have about 25 minutes, so do you just want to keep
going?
Yep,
I want to keep going. All right. Oh, I just noticed a picture I have to show briefly. Here's a picture of my wife's parents. And this is just one thing I want to demonstrate, and that is if you make edits to a JPEG file within Lightroom, make sure that when you're done and you want to give it to somebody else, you do it via the file, export, and then save it out with one of the presets you might make. Looks like my presets didn't stay here from the other day, but be sure you do that. Don't do the following. Don't right-click on the image and choose Show in Finder to say I want to find it on my hard drive, and then give them that file. Don't do that. Because the edits that you made in Lightroom are just text attached to that image. And if it's viewed outside of Lightroom and outside of Photoshop, it's going to look like this instead. That's the original picture. The changes you make in Lightroom are metadata based, meaning it's just text attached to your picture. That stuff is not permanently applied until you take that picture and you export it. When you export it through print, web, slideshow, book, or through an export preset, that's when it's permanently applied to your image. So if I come over here and say, I wish we had an export preset, let's make one quick.